All right, all right, all right. What's up, fam? Glad to be with you again. We're going to wrap up this contract with Black America. We're going to wrap it up right now today while it's a slow, brisk, nice day out there. Y'all can see Mom's back out here. Which way is that? In the background there. There she go. Looking all good. But let's go right into it. Wrapping up with a contract with Black America. So far, we have gone from the preface, the introduction, representation, lending reform, judicial reforms that he wants, the constitutional amendment that he wants done with the 13th, police reform. He talked about entertainment reform, the monument status, our responsibility, and neo-reconstruction, which is bringing back the Reconstruction period after the Civil War, where our people were enfranchised, we were represented, we were prospering, and then the democratic situation took over and they brought the Jim Crow and everything else to us. Today we are going to be looking at the economics situation here. Now, when we hit economics, economic impact right here. Through the institution and racist enforcement of laws and policies such as the Homestead Act of 1862, the Social Security Act of 1935, the GI Bill of 1944, and the Federal Housing Administration loans and its related redlining of the 1930s through the 60s, white Americans were granted advantages and opportunities that African Americans, so-called blacks, were not. All but 2% of the $120 billion of government-backed mortgage loans that were awarded were given to white. All but 2% was given to white people. This reality undeniably helped create the incredible wealth gap between blacks and whites that exists today. According to the Federal Reserve, the median white household makes an average of $171,000 for the year, has nearly 10 times more wealth than the median black household, which makes $17.6 thousand a year. That's the average for a black person today. 17.6K. While white folks' average household income is $171,000 for the year. Now, a white person without a high school diploma has nearly as much wealth as a household led by a black person with a bachelor's degree or advanced degree. A household led by a white person with a high school diploma has more wealth than a person that is in the house, black person that's in the house that has a bachelor or advanced degree. If you only got a high school diploma, you're making more than us. According to the real estate app Redfin, African American families have lost out on at least $212,000 in personal wealth over the last 40 years because their home was redlined. The results of these policies have leave African American families with 10% of the net wealth of white families, meaning they got $100, we only got 10. Yeah. So that's how it looks right there. Wow. Hispanics make more than us. Their average income is for the year is $20,000 a year. Ours, 17.6. The lingering cost of race-based policy. According to the real estate app Redfin, African American families have lost out on at least, we read that there. They said that. Let's see, $212,000 in personal wealth over the last 40 years because their home was redlined. Because of these historic wrongs, masses of African Americans need economic revitalization and relief, including, though not limited to, more home ownership, less debt, better credit, and higher incomes. A quote here from Numbers: any man or woman who wrongs another in any way and so is unfaithful to the Lord is guilty and must confess the sin they have committed. They must make full restitution for the wrong they have done, add a fifth of the value to it, and give it all to the person that they have wronged. That's an NIV reading of Numbers 5 and 6. Y'all would handle it the way God would handle it. Who should receive restitution? Our goal is to propose economic strategies and processes to address the concerns of the 40 million living descendants of American slavery. As a group, they range between 3 to 5 generations away from this legalized economic atrocity and are current victims of the post-civil rights discrimination, such as racial policing and increased cost of court and legal fees, credit discrimination and higher cost of interest, housing markets discrimination and depressed home values, job discrimination and persistent wage gaps, mass incarceration and loss of wages, subprime mortgage collapse, and race-based exploitation, student debt disparities that are impacted by race. Wow, man, he's dealing with everything here. Now, what are the economic targets? To use a measurable and fair calculation similar to those suggested above to address the economic implications of the above infractions and to lead the country to a better and more inclusive economic infrastructure. Look at here, we got a Civil War era black family, brother working. He in the military. Calculation metric, compensation for lost wages. Economist Larry Neal calculated the difference between the age wage paid to non-black laborers and the expenditure for expenses paid for slaves, such as clothing and housing. This calculated to $1.4 trillion in 1983, now estimated between 5 to 8 trillion with 5% assumed interest. Compensation for market value of slavery. Confederate Senator Judah Benjamin estimated the market value of slaves to be $4 billion in 1860. Compound that to 2019, and that would equate to $9.3 trillion with 5% assumed interest. The Freedmen's Bank and the Seneca Stone Ring scandal. Payment to the descendants of the depositors of the Freedmen's Bank due to the fact that the bank's leader and noted Republican politician, Henry Cook, used the former slaves' funds during a financial collapse, and the federal government didn't insure or support it. The net present value to account for interest of the capital is approximated at $65 million in 2018. There are some people out there owed some money whose parents, foreparents, grandparents, great-grandparents had money in these banks and were part of these different things, and it was just taken. Or not insured by the government lose the money, then they go bankrupt. They get bailed out by the white boy, but the white boy don't pay them back. Everybody lose. No one's gotten anything given back to them that was taken from them when the Jim Crow laws started and black people were not allowed to have land. You did not get that land back. Your family lost that. They're giving it back to everybody else but us. Now, he's trying to address this. Now, the job market discrimination calculation between 1929 and 1969, if you just account for 40% of the pay gap due to race-based labor market discrimination gains occurred to whites, it's about $1.6 trillion. Now, the considerations for disbursement of this money. Recognizing that the GDP of the overall U.S. economy is $20.5 trillion, we are not suggesting the above amounts be dispersed as a one-time lump sum payment, which could adversely affect the American economy and treasury functions, not to mention causing staggering inflation. Instead, the above calculated amounts could be distributed in several forms, including annual cash installments over a 10-year period, tax breaks, tax credit, interest-free loans to spur home ownership, and or the funding of additional proposals that are made below. And then he just included some pictures here just to show us, for intent. We're gonna look what's happening. It's how we got treated. While most of us who's listening will be listening. Y'all was alive when this was happening. We know folks, our grandmothers and so on who can tell their stories. And somebody 80 years old, man, they got a story to tell. 70, they got a story. And then 90, y'all know what? And you know them. They got a story and they know. Now, let's look at the recommended tactics for restitution. A mandate that the descendants of African-American veterans of World War II who were unable to capitalize on the opportunities afforded by the GI Bill of 1944 to 1956. Now you're talking about our granddaddy. They should receive an MPV of those benefits calculated at a 5% interest rate. Start a trust fund for asset building grants for home ownership, education and business, startup funds, or vouchers for purchase of financial assets, along with a governing body to establish rules and protections for proper allocation of the capital for long-term development. A mandate that all American corporations that benefited financially from slavery start a management training program for African-American college graduates, with the goal being to increase the number of the blacks in management and executive positions to one of equality with the black population of 13% of this population in America. We make 13% up. So in the businesses, he's saying these ones that benefited from being on the backs of slaves, y'all to have some black folks in there working at the top. And we got qualified people who can do it. You understand? Now, to one of equality with the black population within the given number of years, and donate a federally mandated percentage of their profits to black-owned businesses over a predetermined period of time. I mean, those places would have to give black businesses and undergird them with their profits, since they profited on the backs of us. This would be government mandated and regulated. Okay, now let's look at launch a user-friendly national website and app for support in rolling out this plan, along with networking, training, and educational components. Create a pension system for purposes of investment and growth where only interest payments are currently accessible. A variation of this was earlier suggested by Cali House and the 1898 Mutual Relief, Bounty, and Pension Association. Next point, make a significant capital investment in financial infrastructure, as currently 70% of African-American communities don't even have a branch or a bank of any type and are subject to predatory lending, payday loans and cash advances that kill. All of us know what they are taught, what they've done to us and have us doing. Develop a commission and a timeline in which the commission would address particular economic infractions over time to bring closure on a case-by-case basis. Create and support endowments for historically black colleges and universities, which still educate the majority of the black doctors and engineers in 2020 to 21 right now, we might as well say. Historically black colleges and universities are the main people putting out our doctors and engineers. That's black. That's the main ones. Now they should be getting endowments from everybody. Now, when we went through the education thing in his plan, you could see the disparity in that, where the white colleges get all of this backing and then historically the HBCUs, they don't get nothing. Or a fraction, a couple of percentage. Now, mandate a transparent reporting mechanism for abuses to the restitution program to ensure that the system remains efficient and effective, including federal programs such as the Economic Opportunity Zones and Community Reinvestment Acts, the CRA. These are already in. They got to be reinforced and backed outright. A mandate private equity, pension funds, mutual funds, and venture capital firms to divest from privatized prisons and to be accountable for increasing Black venture capital allocation from the current 1% to one closer to the equality with the Black population of 13% within a given number of years, meaning they got to get out of the private prisoners business and start backing up some of these Black businesses. And right now, they only back 1% of Black business in America today. He's saying they need to back at least 13%, if not more, than need to be made done. They need to be made to do it by the government. Just get rid of this old private prison thing anyhow. We dealt with that in prison reform. Now, he's saying here, mandate that corporations to increase the number of Blacks in management and executive positions to one closer to the equality of our given equality in the population. 13% be in a given number of years. You ought to get these big businesses, all of them, every one of y'all. Amazon, all y'all ought to have 13% of Black folks up in there in the top, making decisions that affect, because we put money in you. Okay, mandate that corporations through tax incentives or law to spend a percentage of their profits with Black-owned businesses over a predetermined period of time. For example, if a tech and banking sector were to spend just 2% of their next profits for the next 10 years, that would equate to $25 billion and $19.4 billion, respectively. Forbes says this: the 2% solution inside billionaire Robert Smith's bold plan of June 19, 2020. Here's what it looks like. You start beginning the phase and payments right there. Y'all start paying off to some of these Black businesses by 2022. Couple of years now, these Black businesses will start getting undergirded by all of these big old funds and corporations. Corporations that do it willingly will get a big old tax break. They're going to get some tax incentive. And then if the ones that don't, there's a law that says you got to get out of business. We got to get our representatives. Now, I don't see anybody who would have a problem with this. Okay, let's go right on to our next subject. Now, I know I'm getting at it, but it's not a lot, so I'm trying to get through it here. Education spending. Many of our hearts are being called to a new level of commitment in the fight against our racial injustice. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. I guess I'm hurt. I recently did a video on that them cops didn't have to shoot them boys in that car. That boy wasn't trying to run over that cop. He was not in no danger. He could have moved to the right. They could have put paint on the window, something to stop, but they didn't have to shoot them kids. And I'm starting to get upset about everything. And I think this is why we should be addressing this, and y'all should be looking at this contract and seriously considering and calling up your elected officials in your city and start making them address it with the uppers and start writing our senators and our congressmen to let them know that we want this taken seriously. What are you going to do, Biden? Harris, first Black, what you gonna do? Many of our hearts are being called to new levels of fighting against racial injustice. As a nation and as individuals, it's not always easy to know how to invest in the change that we long to see. One of the most impactful ways to make a difference is to address the inequalities in our education. We know that education is not what's happening in the schools. It is not an educational system. They are not trying to teach your children anything. They never taught us anything. There was an indoctrination on how to act here. Go to work, pay your taxes, and die. There was no education being done, and most of the information that we received was falsified, misrepresented, or just flat out a lie. Columbus, for one. Let me stop. Let me get back. Now, it's not always easy. One of the most impactful ways is education. For example, predominantly white public school districts from K through 12 receive $23 billion more in funding than school districts that are predominantly non-white, according to EdBuild. Now, even when adjusted for income levels, white students receive roughly $1,500 more per year than non-white students. Black students face more challenges in the U.S. public education system and higher education. Innovative policy change, financing, and equal access to quality learning and leadership development opportunities are necessary to increase the level of equity in our country and achieve greatness. Remember, we want equity because equality ain't always the situation. Equity is more advantageous. That's like me. I'd rather have favor than money. You know what I'm saying? And you can make money, but you need to have that favor. But equity is better. Like me, I'm a short man. We both get to look at the fence, and the fence is this tall, and I'm short. I still can't see over, but we equally got access to it. Equity would be that I'd be looking at the same level that tall man looking at. I'd be looking to be able to see at the same one as a 6-footer. And I'm 5'4", 5'5". You understand? So that's the case in equity. Now, he's saying that Black students face more challenge in the U.S. Public education system, and that we need innovative policy change and equal access to quality learning and leadership development opportunities are necessary to increase the level of racial equity in our country and to achieve greatness. And here he's showing a Black classroom. Race-based spending has to stop. Listen, according to the real estate app Redfin, African Americans, due to the spending differentials, African American students receive a lower value education even in 2020. Educational spending was the key metric used to argue the pivotal Brown versus the Board of Education case that happened. It was because of the spending, predominantly white, predominantly minority. Total average per student, $13,000, and we still fall short. This is a 2019 yearly education spending per pupil. Increased educational opportunities. Empowered institutions are must if African Americans are to approach anything resembling racial equality. Historically, Black colleges and universities fit both the educational and institutional criteria, so strengthening these schools should be the foremost in any neo-reconstruction plan. However, HBCUs, however, are woefully underfunded, and any sincere attempt to improve Black America's post-secondary educational opportunities must include bolstering their financial outlook. For example, the total gifting or endowments of all 102 HBCUs combined is $2.1 billion. That's slightly more than 5% of the approximately $40 billion endowment of Harvard University alone. Now, all 107 Black colleges get endowments that total $2.1 billion. And Harvard get an endowment alone by itself of $40 billion. Why? Why are they better than Howard or Bethune-Cookman? Why they better? Because they said it was. That's the law. He trying to change that. In fact, 54 predominantly white institutions, many, if not most of which profited greatly from slavery, have endowments of $2 billion or more themselves. That's how far down we are, y'all, and we don't really know it. Y'all don't know this. You got to read this information to actually know it. Considering their drab financial plights, the HBCUs have done admirable jobs of educating African American students. Like they say, we know we always got to be double better, even though we got less. While making up only 3% of the nation's schools and educating 10% of the Black college students, they have produced nearly 20% of Black college graduates, including 50% of Black doctors today. Like 50% of the Black dollars came from a historically Black college in America. Like black institutions, black students often find themselves in financial peril, as 65% of African American college students are independent, meaning they must balance pursuing a degree with full-time work and family responsibilities, according to the United Negro College Fund. You know what it is. You got to go to work. You got to take care of them children you had and that girl. So you got to go to work. You might have to put school on hold, which means you still working that crazy job. And if your back give out, you're done. Now, this challenging juggling act is a major factor in the low retention rate of African American students, only 45.9% of whom graduate within 6 years. The lowest rate among any demographic in the country. Another factor, the sad reality is that just 57% of black students have access to all of the math and science courses necessary to prepare them for college, compared to 81% of Asian Americans and 71% of white students. No matter how you slice it, from kindergarten to college, African Americans, often already battling economic hardships, fight an uphill battle when it comes to getting the quality education needed to compete in American mainstream. I tell you what, I know exactly what they meant. I can't get that man. And nobody can teach it to me. And every time I went to Valencia, I done been to SCC, I done been to Rollins. That math, I always get some person I can't understand. And they act like I'm a dummy, so I ain't never want to say nothing. I just took that up and went on about my business. I wish I hadn't. I wish I would have been able to do something about it, but that's what happened. That's what happened to me. I know this. And I've tried many times to get that thing behind me, but I wasn't able to get that. Prospective education proposal. Now, here's how he's proposing to deal with it. Achieve equal per student public school funding based on state general tax revenues rather than local property tax revenues. He's saying switch that thing on how you do it with the schools. Instead of using the property tax money, use the general tax money from coming into the state. Americans are committed to the welfare of children and the ideal of equal opportunity, creating a level playing field for all students, but many are unaware that inequalities exist in the public schools funding across the country. A lot of people up here, he said, that's them sneaky, what you call them, liberal Democrats who want to be smiling in your face, knowing that y'all ain't got no money to get what you need. But they want to see you get it. They just don't want to help. They say they're going to help, but then they're going to create this thing, and then they're going to regulate the money and keep it, and you still ain't got no book. You still don't know what you're doing. Funding differences from state to state and intrastate vary widely because much of the financial support for public schools comes from local property taxes, which means the amount of funding that communities are able to provide for their schools vary according to community affluence. Meaning if you was living in projects off 3rd there, we know what happened to them. They down. They closed. Ain't nobody doing nothing with that now. Ain't nothing happening with that land still. Ain't nothing going on. Why? Here we go. So that meant what? That divested our community. All of that buying power, all of that went somewhere else. Although most people in the United States are not aware of it, other advanced nations do not fund public schools with local property taxes. Instead, they provide equal per student funding from general tax revenues for all schools throughout the country. We're the only ones doing this in America. Some nations also provide extra funding for disadvantaged students. See, remember, we're the only ones that pay for health care too. Everybody else is just a right to get taken care of if you're sick. In the United States, you're out of luck. Adequate and equitable resources are important to the future success and development for black students. Far too often, black students, males in particular, are unnecessarily placed in special education classes, while the number of black students who takes honors and advanced courses remains significantly low to that of other groups. So he's proposing freedom grants. Create freedom grants to provide African American students the freedom to pursue their undergraduate and or their graduate education for zero out-of-pocket tuition. Findings suggest that racial diversity matters for learning. The core purpose of a university, increasing diversity, is not only a way to let the historically disadvantaged into the college, but also to promote sharper thinking for everyone. American colleges and universities contribute at least 1% of their total endowment market value, $6 to $10 billion, to fund this. Guaranteed set-asides would be another way. I like the freedom grants. So guaranteed leverage guaranteed set-asides from the national lotteries, designed specifically for historically black colleges and universities and predominantly black colleges and universities, scholarship programs for African American students, and a special 529 college savings seed, and a matching fund plan for United States African American families. Lotteries were used not only as a form of entertainment, but as a source of revenue to help fund the colonies. Each of the original 13 colonies established a lottery system to raise revenue. Two major lottery games, Mega Millions and Powerball, are both offered in nearly all jurisdictions that operate lotteries and serve as a de facto national lotteries. Mandate using the set-aside monies proceeds for black communities' educational empowerment initiatives and programs, as opposed to the current system where most state legislatures use the lottery money to pay for a portion of the state public education budgets and spend the money that would have been used had there been no lottery or cash and other things. All colleges and universities with an endowment above $1 billion that benefited from slavery must give government-mandated percentages of their endowment to historically black colleges and universities. Just make the thing right, man. Don't just keep giving all this money to these folks, and they've been the devils in the whole thing. You know what I'm saying? Institute spurs summer programs for underrepresented students. Initiative at black colleges and universities, primarily in the STEAM disciplines, science, technologies, disciplines for underrepresented students from predominantly minority communities. Often during summer periods, disadvantaged students fall behind their wealthier peers. Many first-generation college students come from socially or economic disadvantaged backgrounds. In order for these students to succeed and for society to benefit, it is crucial that we provide a means for these students to gain access to the same careers as their white counterparts. This program will play a pivotal role in advancing education for underrepresented and economically disadvantaged African American students. Additionally, spurs will create diversity of representation among the future ranks of doctors, investigative sciences, technologists, and design experts. Last point, it's to be funded by the Federal Department of Education as renewable grants. Now, last point he's saying on education is to institute a Black History 365 curriculum. According to studies, there is a direct correlation between student self-awareness and exposure to positive imagery of like groups and their academic achievement, meaning that if you don't see nothing like that about you, you can get discouraged when you're learning. The best thing to watch is that Muhammad Ali thing. He say, "Mama, why everything is white? You got white house soup, you got a white dog, you got witch hair, you got all these different things. And with the black people, we got the black ball, and all of these things. Man, that thing good." But it's true. But if we started seeing positive imagery while we're learning at a younger age and through it, it would impact your learning. We should adopt these existing programs into our school curriculums on a national level. The next thing is the last thing is this addendum that he's got. A focus on the black family is the addendum. Focus on the black family. And then he's showing them an actual family, not the one that they showed on the Black Lives Matter thing with one parent and two children. No, this is two-parent system like it's supposed to be, mama, daddy, and the children. Any agenda that sincerely seeks to promote the best interests of the African American community must strive to restore the black family unit of man, woman, and child or children, whether in the nuclear family or the extended family version that has also been prominent throughout history. The father, mother, child paradigm has always been the hub of any strong people, society, or civilization. Indeed, that is why those opposed to African American advancement have long focused on destroying the black family, largely through the disempowerment of the black man. Get rid of us, then they get to do what they want to do. That's how they did it. That was the Willie Lynch situation from the beginning, and that's what's working today. To highlight and grumble about fatherlessness while handicapping black males with presumed criminalization, inferior educational and career opportunities, and mass incarceration is at best counterproductive and at worst hypocritical and duplicitous. As policies are implemented to improve the economic, educational, and judicial realities of African Americans, the intentional restoration of black boys and men is imperative. Imperative. Where we at? A Brookings Institute article published in 2017 stated, one thing is clear. Educational and economic outcomes for black men have profound implications for the prosperity of black families and the prospect of black children, and for racial equality more broadly. Watchdog. This user-friendly interface will provide socially conscious, consumer-free access to business and to company and business ratings that are data-driven, transparent, and accurate. We will provide a heat map that displays ratings for mid, large cap and large capital companies at a glance based on reported data highlighting hiring practices, board representation, black business spending, and other relevant diversity and inclusion metrics. Basically saying, we want to have a place we can go at to look at these places we want to go to, apply, be with, and see how they made up. We want to see how they treat us. And we want to know about them so we can avoid them. Remember, our greatest tool was our ability to impact them economically by not participating in the 60s. This is what we have to get back to, in my opinion. And I think he's trying to make them make a decision to include us, or that's what we're going to have to go back to. Now, he's got a jobs and education, America's Job Pact. That's the AJP he talks about in the contract throughout. An example of what can be accomplished under the contract. It is possible to have a jobs and education plan that serves the needs of all poor people, government, and corporate America. As the infrastructure of our inner cities crumbles, so too does the hope in the hearts and minds of the chronically poor, who feel permanently disenfranchised from their own place of birth. You can just ride down Church Street, OBT, Michigan, any of those, LB McLeod, any of this stuff here going down that route there, just to say a few, just go down 13, wherever you can see this in place. New York, all over you can see this happening. And it's bad, and it's bad. I mean, but what hope do you got unless you got some help? The American dream and promises of the free market system simply are not working, where cycles of poverty and often racism have left large swathes of otherwise potentially productive citizens behind. Dating from the time of the Great Migration, former slaves moved out of the South and populated many of the industrial cities, Detroit, Cleveland, Philadelphia, D.C., Baltimore, places that Trump was calling crap places. That's where we was going at. That's where we went at, to work. We weren't going there to be in the slums. Since that time, minorities have been systematically excluded from building the security of long-term equity in their communities and suffered the pressures of economic discrimination. Entrenched first through the redlining practice in the early 20th century and now through the gentrification pressures of globalized capital flows, which continue a legacy of systematic discrimination against us. Look at Paramount area. We not benefiting from that. The educational systems do not exhibit a clear path from educational success to meaningful employment. While myriad of existing programs attempt solutions, they just aren't working. People are often unaware of how to take advantage of them. And when people have no hope, they have nothing to lose. This can and has led to tragic results, including increases in crime, an exploding jail population, escalated gun violence. Disenfranchised people are angry as they see others getting ahead, even as their own communities' human resources remain untapped. Meaning, you see how good it is someplace else, but you ain't, I mean, that store been closed since our baby moved out. It ain't never been open. None of us can't get it. You know, ain't no grocery store in Goldsboro now. Walmart. Now, if it closed down, what we gonna do? Companies would be willing, disenfranchised people are angry at the community. At the same time, numerous U.S. companies cannot find enough skilled employees to meet their needs, dampening U.S. productivity and resulting in anemic growth. Companies would be willing to invest in people if their needs could be fulfilled. And all of this is unraveling against the backdrop of an America that is in desperate need of a new infrastructure. Basically, he's saying, look, y'all need help, but you won't hire nobody, not none of us. And then you got to put all these stipulations and things on us, knowing that we didn't have it. And we can do the work. We're smart enough. We can learn. We must acknowledge that there is a mismatch between the company's needs and the skills available in the inner city. This continues a vicious cycle of gentrification and disenfranchisement. Underinvested neighborhoods in the inner city become settlement areas for an influx of workers trained to address the skills gap, and those already living in those communities are unable to get those jobs and earn the wages needed to remain in their homes. And so, even as growth occurs in the very communities which need it the most, the people that need it the most are not receiving the benefits afforded by growth. I go back to Paramount, where they done put up a stadium, apartments, and everything else, and we ain't living in them. We not there. You don't even know where to go and get an application. Been staying right there on that corner of Terry and what's the name forever, but they ain't living there. Through a groundbreaking, now AJP will help American companies avail themselves of the vast resources of untapped potentials of people. The AJP will give people willing to work hard to get access to education, trades, and skills that will lead directly to real jobs. Through a groundbreaking public-private partnership, companies will gain access to a workforce that can fulfill its needs while at the same time allowing people to gain the skills required for such jobs. Basically saying, you ain't need to send that job out to Singapore. You could have used all the people in the project there and taught them how to answer them phone calls and what to say, because them brothers and sisters could answer those phones, and those calls would be answered by us. We could be getting paid. Instead, you'd rather pay them $5 an hour instead of pay us the 15 or 20 we deserve. You send it overseas and everybody can't understand. None of us get nothing done. But these same white folks in charge. Different people have different skill potentials and desire different job opportunities. Well, the AJP will address the diversities of these potentialities and maximize the benefits to both the communities and the individuals motivated to enter those programs. It won't be like Job Corps. Gonna be better. Focused on us and the folks who don't got. All us, not just some. All black people or people of color. He said the AJP addresses diversity of potentialities and maximizes the benefits to both the community and individuals motivated to enter the program and to the work required. The results are dramatic benefits to the country at large. The America's Job Pact, the AJP, along with the contract with Black America, is an example of how systematic change and rethinking of American institutions can help everyone benefit. The AJP, the America's Job Pact, is a vision for a national scale program to provide solutions to problems with jobs and education through the creation of the cream of the crop training centers, CCTC. Help American companies, including those in technology and infrastructure, avail themselves of the vast resources of untapped potential in inner cities. Human capital. What that mean? Those people who ain't working. Those people on the streets who need a job, who begging right now. They need a job, but something that can help build them up, not just so they can pay taxes and still be broke. The only way to do it is for us to work together. This is what he's trying to do. Teach students a new trade or help them acquire marketable skills along with life, communication, and organizational skills for other job opportunities outside of the America's Job Program family. Force students to learn discipline of attendance or risk losing the participation in the program. You got to show up. Now, there ain't nothing unreasonable about that. Create a pathway to employment for those people willing to work hard and link these pathways through access to education, trade schools, and affordable skills. Now remember, this would be at no cost. Building that would lead directly to the real job, since companies will help sponsor these programs as they have a more local on a more localized level. Participants will get first shot at open jobs, and they will have a duty, if offered the jobs from participating companies at competitive rates, to work a certain number of years in exchange for that education and the stipends they receive. Again, remember, they're not trying to get you in this and not take care of you. They're going to take care of you in this program. Teach you whatever trade you want to take on, whatever it is you want to be. And then they're going to put you to work at it. You got to show up, you got to do it, and then you got to work a certain number of years there. I don't see nothing wrong with that. When you be agreeable to that, if somebody was taking care of you and helping you get your education, I would have been. I didn't even get to do it in the Army. They didn't teach you how to do that, and I wasn't disciplined enough. I had the opportunity, just didn't know what I was doing. Now I'm ready to help pass that on, though, because I don't want to see none of you go through it. Definitely my sons and I just can't. Boy, I hope we can make some of these changes happen. Companies would gain access to a workforce that can fulfill its needs while at the same time allowing people to gain the skills required for such jobs. In each study, we would recruit the cream of the crop from troubled neighborhoods and cities through a variety of entry points, including the mayor's office and those of locals of elected officials, local economic development entities, and civic action groups. Boy, with all these mistakes in this thing, I'm wondering, is this a plant document? And those of the local elected officials, local economic development entities, and civic action groups. Local leaders can be enlisted to recruit people who would be admitted to the program based on performance in schools or testing to determine suitability for the program. Invitations to attend the area CCTC, cream of the crop, schools would be given to students and adults who show exceptional discipline, focus and passion, and talent. Basically, if you want it, they're going to give it to you. And you prove it how? The same way you're supposed to prove your Christian faith, by walking it out, living it. Now, let's see what else they're saying. We done. We almost done, y'all. Don't worry. We almost done. We almost done. CCTC education and training centers would be located in or near at-risk neighborhoods for graduates from middle and high schools, community colleges, universities, and even non-graduate adults to attend and get top-level education and training and get preferred access for a job that they will work for both the students and these companies or agencies. Again, I use the example of customer service. We don't have to outsource nothing. Could have brought them jobs straight here to Orlando or to Sanford, and all of us could have been working. You know, cost sharing can be attained by looking at beneficiaries in society and equally borne by both the country at large as well as the nation's corporations, both of whom would benefit immensely from successful implementation of this plan. You'd be talking about bringing in the cream of the crop. Companies would lower their costs of acquiring and training employees while reducing turnover. Because remember, the AJP would teach you the skill that you needed. It would be specifically lined up to that while you're going to school. You understand? And you don't have to worry about working because they're giving you a stipend to live on. Where to get the money? From that money that they're giving, them revenue that from the places that benefited from the backs of us. And from the lottery. Why not? Okay? The problem is let them recognizing it's coming to black folks. That's why it's a problem. Now, the cream of the crop training centers will set up low, be set up, and we said that, low in inner cities where citizens who are serious about their future can make their dreams come true. This is like highlighted, it looks like to me. These CCTs are not unlike the small business development centers in New York City, although we plan for them to be more effective through the participation of the local leaders. We empower the local community to directly be involved with from cradle to the job. Because remember, he said in the economic part of his statement, he wanted the government to set up a fund for your child when he's born, if you're black, so that by the time that child come out, he got money that he could decide to either start his business or buy a home that he wants to live in. So he won't be left without. No matter what the situation is, because he was born, the account was set up right then from the beginning and invested on by the stock market for that child when he graduate. Ain't that something? Now, they can do this. Now, let's see. We empower the local community to be directly involved from cradle to the job through the trials of each stage with multiple layers of support and direct connection with companies and their needs for reemployment. The cream of the crop will unite community leaders, businesses, and local agencies and skilled professionals to process applicants and coordinate individual plans to meet their individual needs. Train and educate the most qualified to acquire the skills they need to join the workforce. Provide a 21st century life program that teaches the basics of how to pay taxes, balance your bank account or budget, invest, participate in government, or how to know how to deal with the adversities of all types that we all face at one time or another while becoming a better American citizen overall. We need that. We need that. Refer applicants to partner trade schools, certificates, or tracks within colleges of higher learning or the CCTC facility in other regions with the specialty training needed for the individual. Again, tailor to what you want to do. Provide training and education as long as the entrant agrees to abide by the standards of performance that will include maintaining grades as applicable, strict attendance level, workplace level conduct, and volunteer service to the community in which you reside. You would have to do community service. Build trust with local communities who in many places are intimidated or don't trust existing government programs. With good reason. Now, the building of the CCTC in their neighborhood provides an access point to getting help and learning about the AJP, as well as getting information on existing programs outside of the AJP if they are better suited to help the individual. The AJP will work in coordination with the local middle and high schools and community colleges to ensure the best students see a path to success. In addition, adults of all ages could qualify for an invitation by taking a test. We envision an opportunity for the formerly incarcerated who have exhibited the hallmarks of actual reform, such as by the completion of their prison program, to elect to become productive citizens and enter the AJP by applying at the local CCTC. Providing a path for former prisoners and juvenile offenders to exit the revolving system of imprisonment through hard work would also reduce the prison populations and turn criminals destined for a lifetime of criminal activity into productive citizens instead of being a strain on our lagging economy. 4 critical components of the AJP CCTC program that bring this beyond a pure education play are mandatory community volunteering, workplace discipline training, and the 360-degree support, and a living stipend. You need all 4, and they're going to give you all 4. Mandatory community volunteering means that all people who would be in this must participate in approved community volunteering in their neighborhoods. Right now, I think it's one of these police, I can't remember what state just now, but it was just on this morning. Well, he's going to implement that. Any cops in their car, they got to stand outside a certain amount of time every time they are in the spot there so they can interact with the community more, so people know who they are in that neighborhood. So you become a person to us and we become people to you. It would mean that you would participate in that. It teaches the importance of giving back as well as providing a local face to the AJP. The volunteers' efforts would primarily focus on activities with broad community impact, such as beautifying or improving the physical environment, supporting the expansion of the local kids programs, such as local sports leagues, and patrolling playgrounds to ensure their safety. Just like when community rallies around an athlete because he knows he or she has a chance to make it out, local citizens would encourage students to succeed, as there would be a direct connection between success of the AJP and the improvement in their lives. The second part that he's saying, the teaching of work discipline, would be a strict standard of discipline that would be maintained to attend these places, the AJP or the CCTC centers. This is no free ride, as you would have to work hard and maintain strict attendance and performance levels. If it's not allowed in the workplace, it won't be allowed at the AJP. 360-degree support. Many local examples throughout the country prove that a 360-degree view of each student is essential to success. The AJP would also provide counselors, social workers, urban mentors, and life coaches to help students deal with the varied social and mental issues that many struggle with in these at-risk communities. As an example, PTSD is an undiagnosed problem in many of these communities, and we need to invest in the well-being of these students so they can achieve at high levels and fulfill their potential. Now, I think that's just, boy, that's one. PTSD is probably the most undiagnosed in us. Post-traumatic stress disorder. PTSD. We stressed all the time. You worried about everything, especially a brother got jail on it. Boy, you have a problem driving. Losing my, you got a twitch now. Just saying. No, that's underdiagnosed in our communities for sure. For sure. For sure. The last point that it's making here is that he's going to give a living stipend. What is that? Lastly, beyond providing education and training, students who fulfill all the requirements would be entitled to a living stipend. If you want to come on time, you want to go to class, you want to be there when they ask you to, and you want to participate fully, not just be there for the free ride, then they'll pay you to be there. You would be entitled to a living stipend. For many young adults in the inner cities, providing education is not enough because many come from broke homes that rely on them to support their family. So basically, you can't go to college because you got to work and help mom and them. Now, or go to school even. My daddy did a long time ago. He didn't finish until later after we were born, and he finished out at Stetson. But that's because he wanted to do it, but he had to go help and help with the kids. There was a lot of them. In the same manner that companies often send their employees to get additional degrees and skills while on the payroll, that when they bring that, they then bring back to the benefit of the company, our students who show need would be able to pay their bills and would not be precluded from taking advantage of the AJP. By doing this, we are addressing a cycle of intergenerational poverty. That's what the military did, really. It provided early blacks with a chance to get in and make a money. You had to do the job at first they told you to do. Now, today, you could go in and pick your job. What you qualified to do, you pick it. And they pay you. And remember, man, you're doing good if you go in while you're young, man, and build your future up. Now they're giving an alternative. This is an alternative to the military. Now, let me see. Where we at right here? By doing this, we are addressing the cycle of intergenerational poverty, years of neglect caused by racism, classism, and socioeconomic disadvantages, and will break the cycles of poverty and the lack of opportunity. We enable maximum participation and not only change the lives of the individual enrollees, but change the destiny of the whole family. The value systems of the community are altered, and we bring these people and their communities into the free market economy that rewards them for hard work and investing in themselves. Ultimately, they are taught the skills to participate on an equal playing field in the economy. In other words, how it should be. The AJP in conclusion. Infrastructure includes our citizenry. The AJP will be a pillar of hope for otherwise hopeless communities. Citizens will have choices to do the hard work that will put them on a clear path to becoming working citizens, and local companies will have a homegrown, motivated, and qualified workforce to fill jobs that are needed for them to grow. Each community would benefit from the volunteer work being done by every CCTC student in and around the area. The Cane cities would begin to thrive, and people would be once again invested in and proud of their communities. Inner city benefits enormously, and people feel better about themselves and about their government as their hard work is rewarded, and they are prepared to meet the challenges of the world. We believe it is time to connect good students with good jobs without reference to racial and economic identity, instead of continued frustration created by a systematic lack of opportunity afforded inner city students. The AJP will provide hope to current and future generations and provide tangible, foreseeable reasons to stay in school and perform at higher levels. Why should it be necessary on a job application to put down what color you are? Well, what does that even matter if you could do the job? So here's the deal. He's asking you to join the fight for a better America, better Black America. First 100 days of 2021, sign your name. Let me see if I can do it again. I already did it, but I'm going to do it anyhow. This supports this contract and demand an open debate and a clear and fair vote within the first 100 days of the 117th Congress in 2021 on these above proposals. This is why I'm behind it, y'all. This the whole thing behind it all. This the whole thing behind it. See, the first 100 days, we want Biden and Harris to jump on these points. Do something for us. And if they don't, we know where we stand, and then we need to rethink our citizenship. I think Dave Chappelle should be president. No, I'm just saying, the man be having some good points, and anybody would have done better for us if they're thinking about us. Let's give Biden a chance. Let's give Harris a chance. But I think y'all should jump on board. I'm gonna see if he's gonna let me do it. Thank you. So I guess it let you do it twice. But that's our deal right there. I just did it. I know you didn't see it. I'm gonna bring it back here. I want you to go to contract with blackamerica.us. The contract with blackamerica.us. right there. I need you to go there. We need you to go down there and sign this and agree. Again, it's been my pleasure talking with you and reading to you the contract with Black America. It's, to me, it is it's a very necessary situation. And you guys do something about it. Let's do something, okay? Let's get together. Thanks for tuning in. We're going to talk about other stuff later. In the meantime, have a great one.